Hello and welcome back to another video. If you couldn't tell, we are here in Central Park and we just got some really good news, but I'm going to keep that to the end. Finding an apartment in the city is an exercise in lowering expectations. It's a bit like going to the casino. If you expect to walk out there a winner, you're probably going to end up homeless. So for the last 3 weeks, I have spent hours on StreetEasy looking up apartments, and I've toured about 12 or 13 in person. My fiance and I have been looking for a one bedroom for about $3,300 or less in the southern part of Manhattan. When you're looking for an apartment, you want to consider your lifestyle and what kind of area of Manhattan you want to wake up to. If you're really passionate about spending time outdoors and in nature, then you want to be close to Central Park, where I am now. But most young people like to be around the East Village and Greenwich Village that are full of restaurants and bars that a lot of young people like to go to. And the whole area is very pretty and super walkable, so we both really liked it there. I've done apartment searching now a few times in Toronto, where I'm from, but the only difference to New York is that the apartments here are about twice as much for about half the space. So let's talk about what you can get for about $3,000 in this area of Manhattan. Welcome home to your 6th floor building from the 1900s. There's definitely no elevator or laundry in the building, and there's probably a bunch of bugs. In this price range, apartments will be rented after a day or two, so you have to move super fast and be a little bit aggressive with the agents. I've been texting and emailing agents over and over again before they would finally respond to me. You just have to get to the top of their inbox. It's important when you're looking for an apartment to really broaden your horizons. If you want a very specific area of the city, then you may not find an apartment in time. You're looking for a May 1st apartment, and we didn't start looking until the beginning of April because they just weren't really being posted online. And that's because they turn over so fast. Once you actually start the apartment search, you don't have a ton of time to figure things out. And if you're looking for something really specific, you might have a hard time. But here are the things that I was looking at in our search. We did see some apartments that were on the 1st or 2nd floor, which are great because you have much easier access to the street level. On the 5th or 6th floor, you're climbing up 4 or 5 flights of stairs to get home, and if you get to the bottom and you forget something, you have to run back up, you're gonna have a hard time, especially in the summer. The upside of a higher apartment is that they usually have more natural light, it might have less bugs, and a bit of a nicer view as well. My fiance and I are both really light sleepers, so the first thing we would ask agents before we would even tour the place is if it's at the front or the back of the building. Because if you're on a busy street and you're at the front of the building and you're hearing traffic going by all night, you're gonna have a bad time. You're not gonna be able to sleep peacefully, and that will completely ruin your New York experience. So it was an absolute requirement for us that we would have a unit that would face the back of the building, and we would just stand in the middle of the unit to see how quiet it really was. You also want to consider the immediate area around the unit. If you're right next to a fish market, you're not going to have a good time. One thing that you always want to check is how the hallways and everything looks on your way into the apartment. I toured this one apartment in Little Italy that looked okay on the inside, but the hallway looked absolutely abysmal. There was like a light bulb hanging from the ceiling, and it looked like they were halfway done painting. So I was asking the broker if they were ever going to finish it, and he's like, oh, there's some issue with the anchor tenant and they're waiting on something. So basically he had a really poor answer, and that was a huge red flag for me. He also had a unit that was right below the apartment I was looking at that had this really sketchy sign. It looked like no one had lived there for 100 years, so whether or not they were going to do anything needed a lot of renovations, and we didn't want to be the unit right above a construction site. When comparing how the unit looks on StreetEasy with the photos that the agent has taken versus how it actually looks in person, you'll notice that they use the super wide lens to make the place look a lot bigger than it actually is. You would see these huge looking apartments, and then you would show up and it looked like it could barely fit anything. But after seeing the 3rd or 4th apartment, you get a pretty good handle of what actually will look good in person and what's a bit of a catfish. So if you're okay with the immediate area, you're not close to a super loud patio or bar, and you're not at the front of a major road, you can think about how close you are to a grocery store or a transit station. That will make your life a lot easier. I wanted to be really close to a Trader Joe's and a Target so that we could get cheaper groceries and also like paper towels and toilet paper, all that kind of stuff. Some of the units we saw still had a tenant and others were completely empty. This can be tricky because you can have a tenant that is super messy and it can give a bad message of what the apartment is like, but you could also have an empty apartment that looks a lot bigger because there's no furniture in it yet. So you have to try really hard to imagine yourself actually living in the apartment with your furniture to see how functional it would be. Maybe you have to get a kitchen island because there's no counter space, or you have to rethink how you're going to organize the bedroom so that everything will fit in its place. Okay, I want to move on from just giving general advice, but I do want to just finish with when you enter an apartment for the first time, first impressions are huge. This is the story of the first application that we put down on an apartment that we really liked.